The first department this morning is Transportation and Development. Dan Johnson is the director. Go ahead, please, Dan.
Thank you so much. So pleased to be here today in front of the Budget Committee. I want to take a quick second and introduce the brains behind the department. They're over here to my right. I have Assistant Director Cheryl Bell, who's Assistant Director of Development. I have Mike Besner, Assistant Director of Transportation, and I have our financial guru, Deidre Landon, who makes me look great. And so I just want to acknowledge them and the great work they do. There's a lot of good information in your packet today. I'm not going to speak to all that, but we have 6 unique lines of business. We have 18 unique programs. The packet is full of great information around how we measure our successes, where we look to improve at. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about that. But having said that, we are here to have a discussion around the budget. So I am actually going to run page by page through this with you. And I'm going to start on tab 16, page 10. Couple things. We have 7 unique funds within the department. And we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of those because the roll-up page rolls up a lot, to be honest. But essentially, our total budget is $193,214,369 for the department. Essentially, I want to highlight the fact that of that, about 2.4%, the tune of $4.7 million, is general fund. But I also want to highlight the fact that, those general fund dollars are very targeted and provide very public-facing services, which all of you are aware of, but primarily fall into dog services, county surveyor, and our planning department. Having said all that, the budget before you proposes an 8.4% cut in our general fund. Basically taking it down to the $4.7 million we discussed earlier. I also want to affirm to the Budget Committee this proposal, as it does go forward, is going to have staff reductions associated with it in certain areas. And last but not least, I want to make sure, especially for our commissioners, you'll notice in the programs, code enforcement is no longer there. It's not gone. Don't worry. It's embedded now within some of these programs, and that's some of the cost savings that we brought forward. So the program is still there, but if you look through this list, you won't see it. Be affirmed it has not gone anywhere. We still own it. It's still there. So it's just embedded in the programs they serve and they provide services for. So moving on, the roll-up page, tab 16, page 12. I'm going to speak to 3 specific things here. And as all of you are budget aficionados, I look at the right column, and the right column is your percentage change. I look at that right column and also what kind of dollars are changing. Is it a big expense or a smaller expense? So I'm speaking essentially from those items on the right side. You're going to see 161, first and foremost, revenues, bonds, and other debts. We see 161% change there. I want to make sure that we understand the fact that increase is associated basically with some auction sale proceeds. No big changes there. Second, you're going to see a 55.4% reduction. That basically is a reduction in our other interfund transfers. That basically, just for all intents and purposes, is the fact that we got ARPA money for lost revenue last year. We don't have those revenues this year, so that's reduced. And then last but not least on this page, I'm going to be frank, our department had a little PTSD. We had a pandemic where we had to get everybody remote in 2 weeks for our departments. We had a wildfire, where we just finished up, in all honesty, the debris cleanup for that. We had an ice storm where we had 30,000 cubic yards of debris in the roads. And so I say that as you look at the changes in our reserve and our contingency, we tried to make, in the prior year, we tried to make a little more contingency there because we stopped saying what's next, and because there was always something next. We've right-sized those this year, and that's why you see those big shifts in the reserve and the contingency, okay? Okay, real quick, tab 16, page 13 is our general fund. A couple things I'm going to touch on here, just keeping it specific. You're going to see some reductions, for example, in charges. You're going to see reductions in personnel services, materials and services. A lot of that dealt with the fact that we've embedded code enforcement. And when I say that, what does it mean? Essentially, we have taken our code enforcement program and embedded them in the specific programs they help and they serve. So planning department, building department, et cetera. And those specific departments are paying those charges, which then reduced our need for general fund dollars to support that program. I'm going to go back. Essentially, there's the remaining, the reserve, and the contingency in this fund is primarily made up of dedicated funds, which is part of our sustainability program. There isn't a lot of fluff in here. There isn't a lot of growth or opportunity to cut, et cetera. So moving on, tab 16, page 14. This is our development services fund. Again, you're going to see a couple changes here in regards to personnel services, material services. Most of those, again, are associated with the code enforcement adjustments. You're also going to see capital outlay up here for 29%. That has to deal with supply chain issues. It's vehicle purchases, et cetera, that have increased. And then again, you'll see reserve and contingency have kind of right-sized themselves and are more appropriately aligned. Tab 16, page 15, this is our road fund. We're going to spend a little bit of time here. So this is one of our largest funds that we have. You're going to see most of this is dedicated out of either road fund, community road fund, and or Damascus roads. I want to highlight a couple things starting at the top. You see a 13.3% increase in our revenue. That's basically, it fluctuates annually. It fluctuates based off grants that we may get for certain services. It also is increasing because we're hitting the max of the HB 2017, which is a House bill for transportation funding. That was a slow, progressive roll-up in revenue for transportation projects. That's going to peak, I believe, next year or the year after, but you're seeing a slow increase in that. I'm going to highlight the 306% change in revenue and other debts. That's basically auction proceeds. You've also got a 100% reduction there in general fund support. That essentially, we took traffic safety, who was getting some general fund support, repurposed them through our road fund to reduce the general fund need on that particular program. You're going to see material and services. I want to highlight this in this department especially, or in this fund especially, and highlight the fact that all of our paving work is not capital. Our paving work that is being done is material and services. And so you're going to see an escalated number there. We have about $8 million planned in paving this year. Also, through some changes with finance, we've moved our design costs that used to be in capital into that materials and services as well. So you have a lot of either preliminary project work or you have paving work that comes into material and services. And so that's why that number's significant. You're going to see a reduction in the capital of about $3.7 million. I want to assure the board and the budget committee we are not reducing the work we are doing on roads. Essentially, that reduction is predicated on the fact that we are building a new transportation maintenance facility, and we had additional payments last year. We have fewer payments this year, so that's where that reduction is taking place. And then again, you're going to see this fund, especially with the debris we were dealing with the roads, the debris we were dealing with through the ice storm. A lot of the reserve and contingency are right-sized now. We made a lot of flexibility and the ability to secure funds if we needed to, which thank goodness we haven't. I should probably find some wood to knock on somewhere. Tab 16, page 16. This is our county transportation SDC funds. I'm just going to highlight the fact these are dedicated funds, county-wide and joint. You're going to see some shifts there. Most of those shifts are in regards to materials and services and capital. Our projects moving from design into construction, and so they're actual funding those programs. For those of you who aren't familiar with SDCs, these are systems development charges that are leveraged. They're capacity improvements. So those dollars are leveraged as a part of larger capital projects with other funding. I'm going to move on to tab 16, page 17, which is public land corners. No significant changes here. No significant dollar amounts that I'd like to highlight, but these are dedicated funds that come from recordings from certain documents. I will note the fact that we are expecting revenue to go down for this fund. This is because, as all of you knew, the interest rate was really high, and so folks were refinancing, so they were recording documents. That tune has changed, so we assume that there's going to be a reduction in recording documents, so that's how this program is funded. There will be a reduction in fees associated with it. Tab 16, page 18. No significant adjustments here. This is our fleet services fund, Fund 770. These are dedicated funds. I will highlight the one thing, it's an efficiency we have here in capital outlay. We had a 42% reduction, and essentially that was our ability to strategically use permanent rental vehicles instead of buying new vehicles. So we were able to save money in that category and provide efficiencies. And then last but not least, tab 16, page 19. This essentially, you'll notice our budget has $0 in here for 22-23, but it is the ARPA 230 fund. Essentially, this was monies set aside for essential employee reimbursement pay that was provided by the Board of County Commissioners. That was pretty quick. I just want to highlight just a couple significant issues, just so the Budget Committee is aware. One, we are in the process of completing a new transportation maintenance building, which will take our transportation maintenance facility out of the floodplain. Those of you who had the pleasure of being here in 1996 can recall that excitement. Mr. Rhodes is shaking his head. He enjoyed every minute of that. The flood there will be out of the floodplain, which is great. That work continues. Second, we're growing. We are growing. We are, the county administrator and the board have given us direction to include BCS, as some parts of BCS as a part of our portfolio, and we're excited to welcome them into the DTD. And so this fund and budget presentation will grow next year, so you'll get more time with me, which I know all of you probably don't appreciate. So with that, that is all I have. I'd be happy to answer. I know that was quick. I tried to be quick. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. And that completes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions from members of the Budget Committee? So, Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, thank you. So you did go really fast, but I was able to track it, just lickety-split right through this. But I'm curious about embedding. You talked about traffic safety going in for general fund savings. Could you give a little more description about that? I really like hearing about the different efficiencies that we've established, and I would just like to understand more.
So there's a lot of history associated with that. But essentially, our traffic safety department was historically funded by, oh my gosh, what's the name of it? Justice Court, and monies that came through that program into the general fund, and then those general fund dollars came down. We were tasked and asked by the county administrator to look at efficiencies and reductions on general fund pressures. In working with Mike Besner and our staff, the discussion was that we could retain the general services that were provided by our traffic safety group in that area, in that specific area, because that work fell under the work of the road fund. And so it may be curtailed a little bit to make sure it aligns with because those are restricted dollars, maybe curtailed a little bit, but essentially we are under the opinion that that work does fall within the statutory requirements of that fund and can be funded by the road fund. So that allowed us to return those general fund dollars.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Commissioner Chavez?
Yeah, just I have a few questions, but I just want to I mentioned this yesterday. I really think that a lot of what you do in your department applies to ensure safe, healthy, and secure communities, as well as grow a vibrant economy, as well as build a strong infrastructure, and also, most importantly, build trust through good government. So Dan, I want to thank you and your staff for responding to just dozens of inquiries as we normally, in our normal course of business, people say, oh, this road or this issue or line of sight, there's always these safety issues or road condition issues that come up constantly, as you know. So thank you. Kudos to all your staff for the quick response and the thorough response.
Thank you.
That said, what also comes up are the fees. So people look at DTD, look at their gas tax. They look, especially the vehicle registration fee now, hotter than ever when people go to DMV and register their vehicles. And so we're hearing a lot of that. And so there is some mention in pages 16-30s around PCI in particular, but not really specifically. So in general, can you talk and maybe educate all of us as to the target for PCI, a realistic target, and where we are in general? I see some mentions of it as I read the packet, where a portion of what we're doing is ex-PCI, but it's not really about where the needle's going in all of the roads in the county. It does talk about PCI as far as the roads improved, unless I missed it somewhere.
The target is 7. PCI, for those of you who don't have an excitement about roads, Pavement Condition Index, and basically it's an assessment that we take of our roads throughout the region. We have 1,400 linear miles of roadway to maintain within Clackamas County. And essentially, this is and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, this is basically a site assessment of those roadways, and our target is 70. It's funny because this morning I asked Mike and Deidre for kind of the paving package information to make sure we had that. While we target, so our paving takes a variety, our maintenance and our paving programs take a variety of different forms. And I want to be clear, we're strategic in where we invest those dollars. And there's complexities around that. And so, for example, you'll see fluctuations in our budgets from year to year where you may see 24 miles paved one year and you may see 8 the next, and the cost is the same. And you're going to ask me, why is that? That is because when we're doing 24 miles, we're paving rural roads. When we're doing 8, we're paving urban roads. And so it's the size and dimensions and complexity of the road. Also, it's the ADA improvements associated with the road. Every time we touch a road, we grind, we maintain, we do whatever, we are required to go in there and update all ADA components associated with that road, which is appropriate. We have no problem with that, but adds cost and complexity to these projects. So when you look at an urban projects now, our urban projects are essentially two-year cycle projects. First year is basically the ADA improvements. If you've driven up and down Sunnyside Road, you're welcome for all those delays because those are our ADA improvements going in. That's a big focus next year is I think it's 132nd to 162nd. But we have to do those ADA improvements first, and then second, this next year is going to be the maintenance that's going to come, the paving that's going to be done. We have a maintenance plan. I mean, we've been very strategic in our dollars. One, you know, when I first came on board, was working closely with Mike and Deidre and our transportation maintenance folks and our capital folks to develop almost a consolidated coordinated list to make sure that we're leveraging our maintenance dollars with our capital dollars, that we're not overlapping one another. We have that document right now, and it's actually being refined more and more by our transportation maintenance folks. They've actually done a recent study on where those dollars should be invested. But can I look you in the eye and say we have enough money to deal with every problem that's out there? I can't do that. There are difficult decisions we make on where we leverage our dollars and where we invest those. But I will tell you, to get back to your original statement, 70 is our target, and we strive to do the best that we can.
Okay. I think it'd be valuable, frankly, to maybe have a PCI status for our major broken down arterials and neighborhood roads, because I've been called on the mat, called the carpet on some of these roads, and I've gone in front of their homes.
Yep.
And some are, I think they have a legitimate concern, and I don't know what to tell them. And I don't tell you all of them. I don't share with staff what's the status of this, because the answer is the same. That's not a criticism, but it doesn't give them much comfort, is what I'm really kind of getting at.
And as we've said to all the commission, we welcome those comments coming down to our road concerns hotline. We track that information. We have answers for those people. There are, especially on some of the local roads, to be frank, there are difficult decisions to be made. Some are in very poor condition. We're trying to get to the ones that are almost on the cusp of being in that condition so that we can just do overlays so it maintains the base. Some are significant investments, grind, base treatments, things like that. That is an expensive fix for a short local road that we have. The paving package this year, though, does include a lot of local road improvements that are on, like our Webster package, et cetera. So,
my last question is that, and maybe Gary can enlighten me if I'm wrong here, but or not wrong, but just answer the question. That is that is code enforcement in part responsible for the help with the motorhome issue, the abandoned motorhomes and RVs?
Yes. We are partnering closely with the Sheriff's Office, County Council, County Admin, and others to leverage those dollars. We actually are being proactive in securing some seed money from Metro right now through their grant process. Sustainability is taking the lead on that.
Okay. That money will be directed to which department?
Unclear yet. We'll bring that to commissioners for you to decide that.
Okay. I just wondered if the possibility is they don't fund it, Metro, we don't get the grant, if what we can do here, in which department we would ask for a budget adjustment.
We're still working collaboratively on that. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We have 3 folks that would like to comment or ask a question. We're going to start with Mr. Cernach, then Mr. Karn, and then Commissioner Scholl.
I'm just wondering, what is the impact on increased oil prices and asphalt on your ability to pave mileage?
Let's simplify the question a little bit. I mean, in short, are you seeing paving packages that we bid increase in price? And yes. Having said that, when you look at so when we do a lot of QA/QC on these bids before we push them out to the marketplace, and
QA/QC?
Quality assurance, quality control.
Thank you, thank you.
And so when we have, we may have, if it's a large project, we have a private design consultant that looks at that gives us a construction estimate, et cetera. We have internal individuals who are certified. Our paving packages, we have folks that have an awareness of the price points in those packages, and they have an awareness of the tonnage associated with that. In fact, we have packages where we haven't agreed with the engineer's estimate, and we've held, for budgetary purposes, that number higher. So I'll say that it's having an impact, and we're having to make conscious decisions on whether or not to go forward with those in some projects or not. But for the most part, the bids that we are seeing are acceptable and reasonable. If we see a bid that isn't, that we will basically pull the reins on that project, sit back and kind of see what's more appropriate, maybe scale it back, maybe wait for a year.
Sure. So I guess, so even though you haven't cut paving funding, I'm assuming, what's the reduction in like lane miles that you're paving? Do you have an estimate?
Based off the price of oil, I couldn't even begin to. You know what? Let me look into that and we'll get back to you. I don't think there's a clear-cut answer on that. I mean, we haven't had to adjust our proposed. I don't believe we had to make significant adjustments to any of our proposed maintenance plan, so you're not seeing a significant reduction. But let me look into that and I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Karn and then Commissioner Scholl.
Thank you. I know that there is a improvement. I live in the Damascus area, and a lot of my neighbors are interested. I know there's an improvement project that is planned for 172nd North to Foster. Is that something, how does that work? Is that going to be the city of Happy Valley, or is that going to be, that's a county road? And so just curious about.
That's a very specific question.
Yeah. Well, a lot of my neighbors and folks that knew that I was participating said, could you ask this question?
Perfect. Perfect. We actually have entered into or are entering into an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Happy Valley to partner on that project. That is our road. It is a county roadway. We do not have funds available to reconstruct that road, because essentially you're familiar with the area.
Yeah.
That area heading north is significant reconstruction.
So the city did recently a roundabout, in that area too. Is that something they funded then?
That was funded through mostly development dollars.
Okay.
But what we are doing is we have an agreement with Happy Valley in concept right now to move forward and partner meaning we are going to bring the technical expertise and partner with the city, and the city is bringing the funding, because it is our road. And they have proposed to not only fund design, and we are leveraging some systems development charge dollars that we have, that restricted funding for that effort as well. But essentially, we have an IGA for design right now. The thought is once that design gets complete, there's an IGA for construction. I believe the city, they being the city, has adopted an urban renewal district out there that is providing funding for that. And the intent is to go forward and construct that entire improvement.
Okay. And last question, as it related to the combination of code enforcement into other specific divisions within your department, is there cost savings in doing that, or is it just a reduction in caseload for your different inspectors?
What happens is the fact, one, it reduces the general fund subsidy that was being provided. It increases costs to those departments in certain areas. Where you're really going to see the cost savings is we are having a discussion with county administration and others about how we have 75,000 square feet in that building over there. We pay $1 million a year in rent. We do not have to have 75,000 square feet in that building. We can be smaller, more efficient, and still be operational. We're looking at consolidating that square footage, and that's where you're really going to see from a program of that perspective, those savings materialize probably in next year's budget, in reduction of space, in reduction in leveraging of dollars and with other programs and things of that nature.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
Good morning, folks from DTD. The county administrator asked all the departments to scrub through their programs to find where they could save costs. And it looks to me like your department has done that. On general fund, down 4%, that's good. Development Services Fund, down 2.5%. Let's see, public land, down 8%, and SDC's down 1%. So I would say you complied and you've reduced costs, right?
This isn't a me, it's a we.
Yeah. I know. That's what I mean. Your crew there.
Well, that's HR back there. I don't take
Okay, well, forget that. Yeah, forget those guys. No, okay, but I have two questions for you, Dan.
Yep.
One is, and again, thank you very much for your efforts to reduce costs and increase efficiencies. But one question is on 30 and 60, you got an increase from last year of 6.4 million. How's that going to be paid, Dan?
Okay, so you're on tab 6.
I'm on tab 16,
page 12, and you're referring to...
Yeah, I'm way down at the bottom. Total expenses changed from prior year, 6,478,000 and change. So does that come from fee increases? How does that get paid? Tab 16-12.
Yeah, well, so this is the entirety of the roll-up for DTD.
Okay.
And so when you look at those increases, those are, when I talked about Fund 215, roads and transportation, it's increasing in the revenue we're getting from the state in regards to gas tax and VRF. It's also increasing, it's the grant fluctuation. So it isn't necessarily fees that we're getting there, it's mostly restricted funding. We're seeing that increase occur. Okay,
all right. And on tab 16-15, which is the road fund, changed from prior year, 8,768,000 and change. Now, where does that come from? Does that come from, because certainly your vehicle registration fees don't go up that much?
No, and you can see that if you look at, so tab 16, page 15, and look at I'm looking at the revenue. A large majority of that you'll see is that federal, state, local, all other gifts and donations, and you'll see that it's an increase of 6.4 million. Look right here. This top line right here.
Oh, okay.
That's the majority of those dollars, and essentially, again, what you're seeing is the maturity of the House Bill 2017 transportation funding coming forward. It isn't our vehicle registration fee going up. It's discussions at the state level about gas tax dollars and their vehicle registration fee, and because they did a phased increase of the gas tax, and so those dollars are going to continue to go inch up a little bit every year with that increase, and I think it sunsets or it tops out in 2024, 25, I believe, or 23, 24.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, good. Well, thank you very much. I do have one reprimand for you this morning. I did see a pothole on the way to work.
Okay. So did I.
I like that
It was on an
pothole
ODOT
hotline.
road, though.
Good one.
Okay, seeing no other cards up, Dan, thank you very much for the presentation.